Okay. Hi, everyone. Please give a warm welcome to Laura Niccolai. She's now from the US, but she is a PhD student of the Evenstad campus in Norway, the Inland University of Applied Sciences. And I just give the word to her because it will be a really nice
Thank you,
presentation,
Sophia.
I'm sure.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited to be able to present our project and my PhD today, so thank you all for coming to listen. Let's see if this works. Yeah, so my name is Laura. I have been working on many species, both in wildlife. I've had many species of squirrels, roe deer, moose, wolves, and bears. And then more recently, I started working with free-ranging cattle. And we'll, of course, get more into that. And my studies have taken me a bit all over the world, which has been really nice in terms of diverse projects. I'm currently working through my PhD. I'm a bit more than halfway at the Inland Norway University of Applied Sciences, and I'm working in a project called Carnivore Graze, or Grazing in Carnivore Forests. In Norway, livestock, so that's cattle and sheep and some goats, but mostly cattle and sheep, are usually left to free range during the summer season because the fields need to be used to produce the winter feed. And they usually have no fences, they have no shepherds, they have no livestock guarding dogs, which are the usual protection systems for farmers to use for their animals when they're free ranging. And so, with this in mind, in this project, we seek to understand the conflict between these free ranging livestock and the wolves and the bears that inhabit the same regions where they're at. And we're working in the only zone where wolves are allowed to live in Norway, which puts an immense pressure on farmers that live there. And in this map, you can see that the zone so the green zone is where the wolves are allowed to live and breed. And it's considerably shrunk throughout the years, going from the whole of Norway, basically, to a small region in the southeast at the border with Sweden. So in our study, we have packs that are neighboring, Norway and Sweden. And so sheep farmers, they tend in general to have a lot more depredation um, than cattle, especially in our region. And that's why we wanted to explore whether cattle could make an acceptable alternative to sheep farming in this region or not. They're bigger, they're better at defending themselves when free ranging. And we can talk more about um, some countries have seen that wolves change from going after sheep to going after cattle when they change this, but we'll talk more about this at the end. And so in this project, we explore three different things. We want to explore what are the consequences of putting cattle in the forest free ranging with carnivores present. Are they stressed by the carnivores? Do they encounter them often? How often is that? And what are the consequences of it? We also want to take a look and make sure to explore whether cattle have any impact on the forest that we put them in, as these forests are often managed for wood production in Norway. And in this project, we also take a look at whether cattle impact the biodiversity of plants and pollinators in areas where they are released. And so I work within this carnivore cattle aspect. And I think I will first show you the tools that we've been using, and then we will go through my PhD objectives in a bit more detail and our newest experiment that we've been doing. So we've been working with multiple tools to allow us to explore my main three objectives, as it can be very difficult to monitor these herds. They're not out in just pastures, they are navigating through very rugged terrain in very dense forests, and they can just be very hard to follow. And so one of the tools that we've been working with is called virtual fencing through the No Fence company. This virtual fence is communicated through GPS signals to the animal's collar. So the farmer is able to just set the boundaries of a fence. And if the animal approaches the boundary of this invisible fence, then the collar makes a noise that's followed by a small electric shock if it's not respected, like if the cow doesn't turn around like in the video. And this shock is really, really inferior to the shock that they would get from a normal electric fence. So that's one of our tools. Another tool that we've been using is called accelerometry. Through the use of an accelerometer, it's a small device made up of axis-based motion sensing. So you can study movement through one or several axes. And we're using 3 different axes. We're using up and down, forward, backwards, and side to side. And it's really commonly used every day to identify orientation. So if you take your phone, for example, when you use a compass on your phone, it knows the direction where you're pointing your phone. Or if you decide to change the orientation from portrait to landscape on your phone, it's the same thing. And this can be applied to collect remote information on both domesticated and wildlife species, which is really convenient. And the no fence collar that I just mentioned has all 3 functionalities. It has GPS. It allows us to see where our cows are. We have the virtual fence, and we have this accelerometry movement data. And another tool that we've been, oh, can you see the video or no? There we go. We are using biosensors. So our biosensors from Star Audi record heart rate and temperature, and they allow us to have very precise data while the cattle are out roaming, free ranging in the forest, which is also very convenient. So heart rate and temperature. As of now, we've been collaborating with 7 farmers in Norway, and we've collected data on about 150 different cows of 6 different breeds. And every summer, all adults are collared with these no fence collars, and depending on the year, we have equipped 10 to 20 cows with biosensors. And we've been doing this over 3 years, and we just got extended in the project, so we'll have one last field season this summer. We work in 4 main areas with different landscapes in Norway. The 2 areas in the north, let me get the pointer. Can you see the pointer? The 2 areas in the north are supposed to be carnivore free, as they are not in the wolf zone. They're just a bit north of the wolf zone. But we have had proof of carnivore presence, although in very low density, through feces and sightings and things like that. But the 2 areas, these 2 areas, are in wolf and bear territory, and we have wolves and bears collared in those areas. So we can have more information on actual encounters between the carnivores that are collared and our cattle that are in this area. And so now on to my objectives. So in my first one, I wanted to explore the relationship between behavior and accelerometry and physiology. And for this, we needed to create tools to interpret this movement data that I talked about from our collars and match them either to behavioral data through videos or to physiological data through the heart rate that we get through the biosensors. We have managed to find the relationship between behavior and accelerometry, and this was published earlier this year, so feel free to go check it out. And I'm currently working on the physiological link, so matching this acceleration to the physiological data. And this would kind of allow us to put these collars out on our cows and get all 3 types of data. We would get accelerometry, GPS, heart rate, just from the collars. We wouldn't need to put biosensors. We wouldn't need to put people out in the field to film these cows. So it would be just very, very convenient. We did create a comics version of our paper for better science communication to larger audiences, and it is available in 5 languages. I will put a link to my LinkedIn at the end of this presentation, and it's all on there or on my ResearchGate, so you'll be able to have access to these. So for my second objective, we want to look specifically at what happens during encounters with carnivores. and see how they affect the behavior and the physiology of cattle with the tools that we create in the first objective. I currently have a master's student that's working on the behavioral aspect of this question. She's going to be looking at the GPS data and determining differences in speed, in linearity of movement, in the distance moved, and potential displacement, spatial displacement before and after encounters. And it was really interesting to us that we did not have that many encounters, but that is something that we can also discuss after. There's quite some limitations on this kind of study, just because coloring carnivores in the same areas as we have cows is a difficult task. And this is why I'm going to talk about my third objective. As we didn't think that we had enough carnivores encounters in this project to quantify the consequences on the behavior and physiology of cows, we thought that we could do experimental approaches on our cows. And that's how the virtual cow project was born within Carnivore Grays. So just to get like a summary, within Carnivore Grays, we had already focused on the detection of real cattle carnivore encounters in the forest. We published the article, Matching Accelerometry to Behavior. I'm working on the physiological link. And now we wanted to put our attention to be sure to have enough data on these experimental approaches. And with both of these, the idea is if we can identify behavioral and physiological patterns during stressful events, we can maybe work with the programming team of NoFence, which is the company for the collars that we're using, to create this alert system that would warn the farmers that something stressful is going on, and it would be wise to check on the cows. And we've even talked, and this is just an idea at this point, but we've even talked about somehow incorporating speakers that would broadcast human voices while the cows are in the stressful situation. But more studies would be needed on this. But it's a very nice applied tool that would be able to be created through this. For these approaches, we use two farms. So one with Hefeld on the left side and one with Charolais cows. And the Hefeld cows are known as being a lot more tame, a lot more friendly than their counterpart, which is a lot more wild and protective of their young. And both of these are beef cattle. For the carnivores, we took a stuffed bear and a stuffed wolf and had them placed on a radio-controlled cart. This is usually used by hunters in Norway to train their dogs on how to react to different animals. You can do it with bear. Wolf is usually not used, but moose, lynx, wild boar, all of these can also be used. And with this visual, we also used scents. So we would get fresh pelts of bears and wolves and rub them on the stuffed ones. And in addition to the carnivores, we also presented just the radio-controlled cart with nothing on it, a hunting dog with a person, and these hunting dogs were selected to resemble wolves. So not a golden retriever, but we had a Norwegian elk hound and a Swedish Jämtern that look a bit more like wolves, and then a control where nothing happened. And so this was our kind of setup, our experimental setup. All stimuli were presented to the cows on a dirt road that followed the field with a pause in the middle. And now for a few videos. We'll start with the bear. In the first one, you can see that the bear and the wolf was doing the same thing, are doing these random attacks on their path. And I will show you the differences in between the two farms because there seems to be a breed difference for sure. And in this farm, the cow seemed very aware of the bear and came to investigate. And in the next video, it's only when they caught the scent of the bear that they started to kind of panic. And some of them have already left, but then there was a movement of running away from the bear. So scent, I mean, keep that in mind. Our second farm here had a lot more intense reaction. We had more of a stampede event with these cows, and you'll see some of these are still checking out the bear at the end, but most of them were running and the youngs were being kept away. For the wolf, we were very surprised of the reaction that we were getting. In the first farm, the cows were even letting the calves approach the wolf. There was no real panic reaction. Um, and this is very interesting. I'll talk more about their reaction to hunting dogs because they can make the difference between both. And in this one, so the wolf will appear from behind here and slowly come. It's right here for now. So you can follow the wolf. In this one, the reaction was also very surprising. These cows had a back and forth approach. They would confront the wolf, which is now right here, and investigate what it was doing, and then as a whole group start running like this. And then as a whole group, they would go back and check out the wolf. I mean, it was this back and forth pattern during the whole trial. There was a lot of vocalization, there was a lot of keeping the calves away. So that was also very interesting. With a preliminary look at our data, it seems like the cattle took longer to settle down after the carnivore stimuli than the non-carnivore ones. And for the dogs, for example, what I was talking about is they were extremely confrontational. And if there was no fence, I think it would have been a bit dangerous for the dog. So they can make the difference between a wolf and a dog. For the dog, they are extremely confrontational. And for the wolf, they just did not have a big reaction. So that was interesting. Scent seemed to play a very important role in recognizing potential danger, which we expected. Our hypothesis is kind of like cows will be exposed to feces and urine of carnivores in the forest more than actual carnivores encounters, just because the density of these carnivores is so low. And finally, we had a lot of running behavior, which is great because in the paper that we just published, we were lacking this behavior. We didn't have enough individuals, we didn't have enough videos of these running cows. And from this experiment, it seems, and also that was recognized in literature, it seems like vigilance time and running time seem to be the two behaviors that would indicate a stressful event happening to these cattle. And so, with my objectives, we should be able to get a better understanding of how carnivores impact the behavior and the physiology of cows. And on top of that, we could create this alert system to warn farmers when stressful encounters are happening to their cows, which could potentially help in decreasing conflict between these. And there's still many things to do within our project, but I really look forward to seeing what comes up, and hopefully you do too. There we go. I think I went a bit fast, but that's okay. I'd like to thank you for listening and take any questions you might have. Here are all of our partners, which I want to thank. And in addition, so you can get my LinkedIn with all of the comics and a lot of information on what I've been doing. We also have this YouTube documentary. It's a 20-minute documentary that was made by one of our students on our fieldwork. We have interviews of people in the project. It explains more of the context of the project and how we do actual fieldwork. And then we have our Carnivore Grays website where you can find a lot of updates on what we're doing and a lot of information on the project in general. So yeah, if you have any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm looking for, those who watching this on YouTube, you can ask in the chat. I am checking the chat. And there is anyone have any question? I'm just checking. I have questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first question on the last picture. What are you doing on that picture, for example?
The very last picture?
The very last picture.
Yeah, I was picking cloudberries in Norway.
Ah, Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I have two questions. Maybe you
yeah.
mentioned, but I don't remember that. What did you use for the scent
We
to have
used,
a scent
yeah.
for the model?
We worked with hunters to get fresh pelts of bears, and we worked with Miljødirektorat, which is the environmental agency of Norway, to get the wolf pelt. So these pelts were frozen to keep the scent, and we thaw them and use them for our studies. They still have a very strong scent of the animal, and so we just rub that on the pelt, and it's apparently enough for the cows to smell it even from far away. It was very impressive, and wind direction was also very important in those experiments. Yeah.
My other question that is, so the height of the model, there is the car, there is a model on it, and it's higher than a living individual.
Mhm.
Is this fact have, what do you think, this is influencing the whole experiment, or the scent is the most important
I
thing?
mean, I think visually this is as good of a substitute as we can do. It's obviously not moving in a natural fashion. It's a bit higher than it should be, but I think that they still get a signal that this might be a threat. So I think that if we're not going to be able to use, normal encounters, actual real encounters, this is the best second option. And there's been other experiments that have tried this on sheep, and they were doing something where they were pulling, they had attached just like a little wagon cart,
Mm.
not radio controlled. They had attached fishermen, uh, it's not rope, whatever they use for fishing,
The meal.
because it's
Yeah.
yeah, because it's invisible, and they were pulling in between these two tents they had on their setup, pulling the cart. So that's even less natural. I mean, it's we do the best that we can do with a substitute. We just saw that scent seems to be extremely important in recognizing danger. And there's a lot of studies, not so many on cattle, but a lot of studies on also wildlife that have tested like how do they react to smells and how do they react to visuals, and what senses are they using to recognize danger. And visual seems to not be the first one. Sense seems to be the most important. Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from Peter. Thank you for the informative presentation. My question is that any livestock mortality was reported in the study areas, or such a thing didn't happen in the last 3 years?
Mm-hmm. So sheep mortality is reported to the government. There's a lot less cattle mortality that happens in our area. We did actually have a wolf attack happen during our study. But the problem was that the farmer had some timing of calving, that was too late. And so some of these cows, instead of having calves that were big enough to be sent into the forest, they went into the forest pregnant, gave birth into the forest, so that the farmer had no idea how many calves were born. And the environmental agency picked up, they had cameras before and after a river that was near this farm. They picked up two wolves that were going towards the farm with empty stomachs and no blood on the snout, and coming back with full stomachs, I think the leg of a calf, and blood all over their mouth. So we know that attacks have happened, but unfortunately for this one, they can't really report it because they don't know how many calves were born, how many calves were taken into this particular situation. But the government has livestock mortality statistics in the area, and every time the farmers experience a mortality that they think is from carnivores, the special carnivore unit from the environmental agency come and investigate, and they can confirm if it was indeed a carnivore or not,
Mm.
if that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Have questions? Checking the YouTube.
And if you have any more questions that come up later, please don't hesitate to just send an email. I'll be happy to answer.
Okay. First, second. Last chance? Okay, nobody else. Yeah, thank you, Laura. It was a
Yeah.
really good presentation. It was really
Thank you.
exciting, and I am looking for the new papers and
Yeah, I
results.
will definitely keep you posted, and we can do another one, an update of this presentation in a year or something.
Yeah, it sounds good. Nice.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Okay, then guys, this is the finish. Bye, everyone.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.